Good afternoon. I want to begin with thanking PSIT for calling us here and for inviting us to be on the red dot. It's a real honor to be here and share my journey with everyone here. And a journey begins with the belief that libraries can change lives. One morning at around 4 a.m., I sat in my car and headed towards Badaयूं district in Uttar Pradesh. I needn't tell you how notorious this district is, where rape and kidnapping is quite rampant. Badaयूं houses a school that was started by my grandfather-in-law in 1994. In an attempt to do something for the school, I was heading towards Badaयूं. The road journey was quite scary. There were pockets of areas in the road journey which were infested by dacoits. There was absolutely no sign of a toilet. I dared to eat or drink anything. And after 6 hours of this roller coaster ride, maneuvering through potholes, when I reached Badaयूं, I thought, the scariest part is over. But when I did look at the school, believe me, the scariest part had just begun. 5 acres of land, overgrown with weeds and trees, with 6 dilapidated classrooms with 600 children packed in them. I knew that these children had cycled 20-25 kilometers and come to school. That's what they do every day. And many of them had got up in the morning, done the household chores. The girls had cooked breakfast for the family. A lot of the girls came without any breakfast because of gender inequality. And yet they were in school. And they were in school with an expectation from education. And when I looked at them, their hair was nicely oiled, the uniforms were neat and ironed, and the eyes were beaming. They were beaming with an expectation. And that expectation was from education, and indirectly that expectation was from me. That day I'd called for a parent-teacher meeting, and when I entered the classroom and saw the parents, they were all men. Women don't leave the villages. There were men, there were farmers who came in their dhoti kurta, their skins were all darkened from the sun, and they were wearing dark glasses. And when I talked, they stared. When I asked them questions, they were silent and they just stared. And I know why they were staring. They were staring because they said, what is this city girl doing here in Badaयूं district? And why is she taking so much interest in me? Votes, that's what she wants. But no, it couldn't be votes. She's talking about her children. And then on top of it, she's talking about a girl child. There must be something to this. For the next few years, I made an attempt, and I worked on the school infrastructure. It was completed with 21 classrooms, the biggest toilet blocks that the school could possibly have, science labs, computer labs, a huge football field, athletics areas, manicured gardens to welcome the children, and a lot more, library to say the least. But yet, when I looked at these children and I interacted with them, I felt that there were these invisible signs on the walls that said, don't laugh, don't play, speak only when you're spoken to, only follow the instructions and memorize what I've given you. And it just irked me that why is this happening? And is it only in my school, or is it what is happening in the district and in the neighboring districts? Is this a norm? So I started visiting the other schools in our district and the districts nearby, like Bareilly is another district nearby. And when I visited these schools and the authorities took me around and showed me all the facilities, I would ask them, do you have a library? And they would say, yes, of course, ma'am. This was a library. A dilapidated cupboard, locked with rusty, dusty books inside. And when I asked them to open it, they'll say, "Arey ha, I'll get a key." And one rusty key would appear. They would unlock the cupboard. And when I would put my hand in and pull out a book, and I read the titles, it would read management, science, nature and me, yoga, agriculture. And when I looked at those primary children, there was no connection between these books and those children. And then I would say, but some of the books are new. Yes, ma'am, we don't issue them. They're very expensive. Nobody touches them. I said, do you have any books for children? Yes, ma'am, of course we have. We have 5-7 books. These were the books that they had for the children. As I walked into the classrooms, I saw these moist walls with paint peeling off, broken desks, where instead of 2 people, 4 children were sitting. And it just pained my heart. And because I like interacting with children, because I love children, I always want to interact with them. I said, is there any child in the class who can read for me anything from the textbook? There was silence. Nobody would move. And then suddenly there was a loud voice that said, Ramesh, you read. Obviously, Ramesh was the best reader in class, and Ramesh started reading. And when Ramesh started reading, he was so soft, his voice was so feeble that I couldn't hear him. And how much ever we coaxed him to read louder, he wouldn't read louder. And then I asked him, Ramesh, can you narrate what you've read in your mother tongue? And there was silence. And then the teacher would say, Tara, you do that. So Tara would get up, and she would start narrating, but word by word, straight from her memory. And then I realized that these kids either read or they memorize. They do not comprehend what they're reading. They memorize a text, they memorize the question answers, they go to the exams, they get their grades, they please their parents. But what were we raising? Today I read everything. I read signboards, I read papers, investment papers, bank papers, I read my office papers, I read newspapers, magazines. Today I'm reading. Imagine if I didn't know how to read, it would be such a huge big handicap. Who would employ me? So what were we raising with these schools that were mushrooming up everywhere? We were raising uneducated literates in mass scale. We were creating unemployable, uneducated literates in mass scale. We were taking a poor man's child for 12 years or more, asking him to pay for the education, and then giving him back or her back and with a board saying, I'm not employable. I can neither go to the field to work with you because I don't like the sun anymore, nor can I put the bread on the table. And this really pained me. It pained me and it pierced me. And I said, what can I do? And then I said, maybe my belief in libraries. Maybe a library can be a solution. Maybe a library can be a catalyst. And so I decided to give the children these beautiful, freshly painted rooms within their school as libraries where color, they would be smelling of joy and brightness through color. They would have carpet on the floor with bright color carpets, bean bags to sink in, new furniture, low tables, high tables, but new furniture. And the books would be in open racks, colorful books, well illustrated, in open racks, attractive to the children, where the children could just go and access them. The librarian, he would be sitting in one corner, non-intrusive. As a non-intrusive adult, he would only control the children from his eyes, not from his hands and not from his voice. The books would be curated. They would be selected carefully. There would be books just with no text, just pictures. There would be books with 1 line per page, the font really large, which would be easy to read, with 2 lines per page, maybe 4 lines a page. Books on humor, on jokes, on people and places far away. Books on science, on history and our heritage. Books on jokes, riddles, poems, something that would attract the kids, make the kids just read. And as I stood outside the window of one of my libraries, I saw my dream coming true. I would see kids rush in to these book racks, and they would pick up these books, and they would just read them. They would smile and read them. They read for 5 minutes, or they read for half an hour. They read with they alone, or they read with their friends. Many a times I saw children, they wouldn't even bother to sit down. They would just pick up a book and even forget to sit down or anywhere. They would just stand and read. When the library time was over, they had to be shooed away. They had to be shooed away, that go home, the library needs to be shut down. And many of the children wanted to carry the books home. They issued books, took them home. Some of these libraries have become community libraries. So after the school closes, the community comes in and borrows books. We heard many stories about this. Many people approached us to open libraries in their schools, and this whole idea started spreading faster than flu in the monsoons. The kind of stories that came back to us, like the story of Sakshi. She's a slow learner and hated to come to school. She had to be pushed to school every day. And after the library, when she could open books which were beautifully illustrated with very little text, the whole learning experience enhanced for her. When the children read this series about Bhura Bhalu, who was a naughty Bhalu, and his mother keeps telling him how he should watch less TV or put the garbage in the dustbin, or he should respect his elders. In the parent-teacher meetings, we started hearing how the children's behavior had changed. We heard from principal and headmaster that how the children had started reading, because gradually and slowly they started reading more and more. The beautifully illustrated books helped them comprehend the text better. And with this confidence, they could now express themselves. We've opened libraries in cancer kids' homes, in hospitals. Even when you're in quarantine, you can borrow a book and take it in your room and read. When people are going through cancer treatment, these kids for 9 months are out of school. They borrow books and they take it in their rooms to read. Now, 3 years, 250 libraries, 40,000 children, an uncountable number of beneficiaries from the community, because we can't count them. You know, it all sounds huge, yeah? But remember, it all started really small. It started with one person, with one dream, and one belief that libraries can make a difference. Libraries can change lives. And that's my journey so far. And thank you for being so patient to hear it. Thank you.